My wife left me for her boss after 20 years. My stepdaughter said he can give us a better life. I gave up everything. Now he's gone, and they want me back. I walked away. 3 years. That's how long I was married to Cassandra. It wasn't a fairy tale, but I believed in us. We met at a community fundraiser where she volunteered. Her laugh, her charm, the way she balanced being a mother to her teenage daughter and still made time to care for others, it pulled me in. I admired that. Maybe that's why I ignored the red flags. When we married, I didn't just take on a wife. I took on her daughter, Laya. She was 14 at the time, hesitant and cold. It took work to earn her trust. I drove her to school, cheered at her volleyball games, and stayed up helping her with math. Over time, she started calling me Dad. I wore that word like armor, proud and protective. I thought we were a family. But love, real love, can't compete with greed dressed as opportunity. Cassandra worked as an executive assistant at a tech startup. Her boss, Gavin, was everything I wasn't: smooth, wealthy, and flashy. I was just a middle school teacher. I wasn't broke, but I didn't drive a Tesla or take weekend trips to Miami. I gave stability, not excitement. Things changed slowly. Cassandra started dressing differently, sleek and expensive. She came home late and claimed she was helping Gavin prepare for late-stage investment meetings. She stopped laughing at my jokes and stopped texting during the day. Laya, once bubbly around me, became dismissive. Then, one Friday night, Cassandra sat me down at the kitchen table. No tears, no remorse. "I'm moving out," she said flatly. "I'm with Gavin now." I remember my coffee mug slipping from my hand, shattering on the floor. It sounded like thunder in that moment. "You're what?" "It's for the best. Gavin can give me and Laya a better life." And just like that, 3 years of my life evaporated. Laya stood behind her mother, arms crossed. Her eyes didn't even flinch. "You've done okay, but Gavin's just on another level," she said. "Mum deserves more. We both do." That night I packed 2 bags and left my own house. I couldn't breathe in those walls anymore. I gave up everything, let Cassandra take the furniture, didn't fight for the car, and signed the divorce papers without contest. She didn't ask for alimony. Gavin was footing the bill now. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment near the school I taught at. It smelled like old carpet and broken dreams. But sometimes loss is the greatest teacher. Over the next few years, I rebuilt. I took on extra classes and saved every cent. I stopped thinking about Cassandra and Laya. Therapy helped. So did long runs and late-night journaling. I eventually got promoted to vice principal. Then, by a stroke of luck, my brother and I turned a summer side project, an education software app, into a full-fledged business. 3 years later, we sold it to an edtech company for 7 figures. By then, I owned a house again. A real one, with a garden, a home office, and walls that felt like mine. I even started dating again, slowly. I hadn't heard from Cassandra or Laya since the day they left until last fall. It started with a friend request, then a message. "Cassandra, hey, I know it's been a while. I'd love to talk. Can we meet for coffee?" I didn't respond. 3 days later, I got an email, then a voicemail. Then Laya messaged me. "I was young and stupid. I miss having a real dad." I ignored them until Cassandra showed up at my school. She waited by the front desk like a parent picking up a child. She looked older, worn. The designer clothes were gone. Her face had lines that hadn't been there before. "Gavin left," she said before I could speak. "He's bankrupt. He drained everything and walked. Turns out he was hiding debts. We lost the condo. Laya's taking a break from college. We're staying with my sister now." I stood there, arms folded, heart steady. And I made a mistake. We both did. I thought Gavin was the answer, but he just used us. I should have never walked away from you. I let that sit. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. I gave you everything I had, I said. My trust, my heart. I was there for your daughter when her own father disappeared, and you two threw me out like last year's phone. I know, she whispered. But maybe we could start again, even just as friends. I looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity. Maybe it was there. Maybe it wasn't, but it didn't matter anymore. I've moved on, Cassandra, I said. You walked away for something shinier. And now that the shine's gone, you're looking for shelter. She started to speak again, but I was already walking. Laia sent one more message that night. I thought money meant everything. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Some people only see your worth after they've already sold you out. Let them, but you don't have to open the door when they come knocking. Some stories don't need second chapters. Sometimes walking away isn't just the best choice, it's the final one. 2 weeks after Cassandra showed up at my school, things went quiet again, or so I thought. Then came the letter, delivered to my mailbox in a pale blue envelope with handwriting I hadn't seen in years. It was from Laia. Inside, a 4-page handwritten apology. It started off like a confession and quickly morphed into manipulation. I was a stupid kid. I thought Gavin's money made him a better man, but he hurt Mom. He hit her. And when the money ran dry, he left us with nothing. You were the only father I ever had, and I treated you like garbage. But maybe you can still be there for us. You always were the fixer, the provider. Please help us. I read that letter once, then again. It was sincere, maybe, but it was also soaked in desperation. They didn't want me. They wanted security. And just like that, the past came clawing back again. I shredded the letter. But Cassandra wasn't done. She came to my house this time. It was a rainy Friday night. I heard the knock and opened the door, to find her drenched, standing on my porch with mascara streaking down her face and a bottle of wine in her hand. Please, she said, just 5 minutes. I don't know where else to go. I let her in because I wanted closure. She sat on my couch, fingers trembling. I lied to you, she said, about everything. Gavin and we didn't just fall in love. I started sleeping with him before we separated. I told Laia because I needed her on my side. I needed her to believe I was making the right decision. And I justified it by convincing myself that you'd be fine without us. I didn't flinch. I just listened. But the truth, she whispered, is he never loved me. I was convenient, and when his company tanked, he left me for an investor's daughter. And now Laia. She won't even look me in the eye. She blames me for everything. I sighed. And why are you here? She looked up, eyes glistening. I want a second chance. You already had it, I said. The day I walked into your life and raised your daughter like my own. That was your second chance, and you torched it. I made a mistake. No, I replied, my voice cold. You made a choice. You didn't just cheat, you orchestrated my exit. You turned your daughter against me to chase a fantasy, and now that it's burned down, you want to crawl back through the ashes. She sobbed into her hands. Then came the final blow. I'm pregnant, she whispered. I stared at her. What? Right before Gavin left. We weren't being careful. I didn't even know until a month ago. He doesn't know. He's blocked me. I've got no job, no insurance, and I'm scared. That's the truth. For a moment, the room spun. I felt sorry for her, but not enough to repeat the cycle. I'm not your rescue plan, I said. I was your lifeline once. You cut the rope. This time you drown alone. I opened the door. She didn't argue. She stood, eyes hollow, and walked out, into the rain without a word. I thought that was the end of it until Laia showed up, She came to my office at work, 20 years old now, colder, harder, but she still had that same spark in her eye when she wanted something. "I want to move in with you," she said, bold and blunt. "Mom's a mess. I can't be around her. You were the only real parent I ever had." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you remember what you said to me?" I asked. "When did you back your mother? When you told me Gavin can give us a better life?" She looked away. "I was a kid. You were old enough to choose. You weren't just siding with your mother. You rubbed salt in the wound. You made it clear I was disposable." She looked back at me, defensive. "So what? People screw up. You're really going to hold that over my head forever?" I stood up slowly from my desk. "No," I said. "I'm just finally accepting what I should have known a long time ago." She frowned. "What?" "That I was never your father. I just played the role while it was convenient." She blinked like I'd slapped her. "You don't mean that." "I do," I said, "and now you're looking for a place to stay. But I'm not a shelter. I'm not your backup plan. You made your bed, liar, lie in it." She stormed out. That night, I poured myself a drink and looked out the window at the city skyline. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not because justice was served, but because I finally stopped carrying other people's consequences. Some betrayals cut so deep you never fully recover. But some lessons, they make you sharper, stronger. I gave everything to people who measured love in money. And when the money vanished, they remembered I existed. Too bad I'd already learned to forget them. 3 months passed. I thought the storm had finally settled. Then came the envelope. It was thick, yellow, and stamped with the words, "Legal Notice, Family Court." Inside, a petition for spousal support and retroactive compensation for step-parental abandonment. Cassandra was suing me. The same woman who left me for her boss. The same one who claimed I wasn't enough. Now she wanted me to pay her monthly support because she was pregnant, unemployed, and had grown accustomed to a lifestyle I once helped provide. She listed everything. The mortgage I used to pay, the car she drove, which I had leased, my emotional obligation to Laya as a stepfather, and, unbelievably, a claim that my success from selling the education app should be shared because she supported my teaching career. Emotionally, during our short 3-year marriage, I laughed. Then I called my lawyer, Angela Ruiz, ruthless, brilliant, and with zero tolerance for games. When she read the claim, she leaned back in her chair and said, "Oh, they really thought you'd roll over." We filed a motion to dismiss with prejudice, and then gathered every document, receipt, and email that told the real story. The court date came fast. Cassandra showed up in court wearing a modest dress and carrying her new pregnancy like a prop. Her lawyer, some low-budget family law guy with dramatic pauses and too much hair gel, opened with emotional appeals. Mr. Carter abandoned his wife and stepdaughter. His sudden wealth does not excuse his duty to provide. After all, love isn't something you just turn off, and financial stability is a moral obligation. I almost choked on my water. Angela stood and calmly handed the judge a binder, color-coded tabs, printed timelines, and signed documentation of the email exchanges, where Cassandra admitted to the affair. Bank transfers from my account to support her lifestyle, even after she had already left. A timeline showing Gavin and Cassandra had moved in together 2 weeks before I was even served. Divorce papers. A copy of the prenup, which Cassandra had voluntarily signed when we got married, waiving all rights to alimony or future earnings. Then came the best part. Angela walked up and dropped the nuclear bomb. "Your Honor," she said, "my client was removed from the life of this child by Cassandra and her daughter's explicit choice. Now that her relationship with Gavin has ended, she is attempting to retroactively reclassify my client's generosity as a legal obligation. We have audio recordings, text messages and affidavits proving he was pushed out, not the other way around." She slid a flash drive across the table. We'd like to play Exhibit D. The courtroom speakers came alive. Lia's voice from a video she had once posted on social media. My mum deserves more than a broke teacher. Gavin's not just richer, he's smarter, hotter, and actually going somewhere. We're upgrading. The courtroom went dead silent. The judge leaned forward, clearly unimpressed. I've seen some shameless attempts in my time, he said, but this takes the cake. Cassandra's lawyer turned pale. She kept her head down. The judge continued, Mrs. Carter, you divorced this man. You left him. You entered a relationship with another man by your own free will. You received no threats, no financial coercion, and no abuse. In fact, Mr. Carter's documentation shows he went above and beyond to support you and your daughter, who, may I remind you, he has no legal obligation to. He flipped through the binder again. And now you want him to fund your life because your choices didn't pan out? Request denied. This case is dismissed with prejudice. And Mrs. Carter, consider this fair warning. Any future attempt to reopen this case could be considered harassment. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just stood, nodded, and walked out of the courtroom like a free man. Outside, Lia was waiting, arms folded, jaw clenched. You really couldn't just help us, could you? I turned to her, my voice calm but firm. I did help. For 3 years I loved you like you were mine. But you made your choice. You both did. This is just the consequence finally catching up. Cassandra stepped out behind her, looking broken. You won't even help with the baby. I stared at her belly, then her eyes. That baby has a father, just not me. Best of luck. Then I walked away for good this time. 6 months later, I moved to Denver for a new position, Director of Academic Innovation for a national education nonprofit. I bought a new house, adopted a dog, and met someone who didn't measure my worth in income or prestige. Cassandra gave birth and moved in with her mother. Gavin never resurfaced. Lia, last I heard, dropped out of school. She tried messaging again, but I left it on red. Because some doors don't just close, they lock forever.